I had just introduced a visualization exercise. I was genuinely excited about it. I prepared it carefully and believed it would serve my client well. 3 minutes in, I could see her face. She was tolerating it, nodding politely, but not truly engaging with the process. And I had a choice: finish the exercise because I'd started it, or trust what I was seeing and pivot. That moment, that choice, is what separates competent coaches from rigid ones. Let me break down what happens in these moments. The excitement. You've introduced a technique you were excited about. You prepared it carefully. You believe it will serve your client well. Then comes the recognition. 3 minutes in, you can see the client is tolerating it, but not truly engaging. There's polite compliance without genuine participation. Now you face the choice: finish because you started, or pivot to what the client actually needs in this moment. And here's the thing: the willingness to adjust is what separates competent coaches from rigid ones. It's not about abandoning your plan at every discomfort. It's about reading what the client needs and responding with skill. ICF marker 7.07 says the coach adjusts the coaching approach in response to the client's needs. Now, let me be clear about what this isn't. It's not about abandoning your plan at the first sign of discomfort or challenge. Sometimes productive coaching feels uncomfortable. That's part of growth. But it is about reading what the client needs in real time and responding with skill and presence. Can you tell the difference between productive discomfort and an approach that simply isn't serving this client? That's the discernment this marker requires. So how do you know when adjustment is needed? Watch for energy shifts. Flat or declining energy where their voice loses animation, responses become shorter, engagement drops noticeably. Confusion signals, repeated requests for clarification, or a puzzled expression that suggests your approach is creating distance rather than connection. Resistance patterns, and I mean resistance that feels different from productive challenge, more like avoidance or disengagement than healthy pushback. Your own internal signal, that intuition that says this is not landing, trust that internal radar you've developed through experience. And tolerance versus engagement, when the client is going through the motions rather than genuinely participating. Compliance without connection is a sign something needs to shift. Here's what I want you to hear. You may pull a technique in and work with the client for a few minutes on it and see it's not working. You need to be willing to abandon that. Abandoning what isn't working is a mark of coaching mastery, not a failure of preparation or commitment. It doesn't matter that you learned this technique and wanted to use it. It doesn't matter that you prepared carefully. What matters is whether it's serving the client right now. And here's something else. You don't have to abandon everything. You can pull in just pieces of a technique, adapting elements to fit the situation rather than following a rigid script. Maybe you use the first 3 steps and skip the rest because that's what this client needs. So what does adjustment actually look like in practice? As a coach, you have to be flexible. You have to pay attention to what's happening with the client, and you have to use your instincts coupled with your knowledge and your learning. Trust your foundation. That combination of intuition, knowledge, and experience is your strongest guide. Read and connect with the client to know what's working and what needs to shift. And be brave enough to ask directly, is this working for you? What would be better right now? The client rarely notices or cares that you change direction. They're just relieved you stopped doing something that wasn't helping. Focus more on the client than on the tool. The person in front of you matters more than the technique you prepared. Let me name the mistakes I see. Commitment to the plan. Plowing ahead with a technique simply because you plan to use it, even when clear signals suggest it's not serving the client. Rigid structure, following all 10 steps of a technique because that's how you learned it. rather than adapting to what this specific client needs. Ignoring intuition, dismissing your internal signal that something is off, that quiet voice that notices when connection or progress has stalled. Missing check-ins, never pausing to ask, where are we right now? How are things? Creating space for honest feedback about what's working is part of responsive coaching. Here's what I want you to take from this. Flexibility is a coaching skill, not a failure of preparation. The ability to adapt demonstrates mastery, not weakness. The best coaches adjust in real time based on what the client needs, remaining present and responsive throughout the session. And your ability to read and respond to your client is more valuable than any single technique or framework you've ever learned. Trust that. Now, flexibility in the moment is essential, but there's also a longer view recognizing patterns that show up across sessions. That's where ongoing relationships become powerful, and that's where we're heading next.